A handshake in Malaysia just stopped a war. On July 28, 2025, Thailand and Cambodia agreed to silence their guns after 5 days of deadly fighting. But here's the thing, within hours, both sides were already accusing each other of breaking the deal. Today, we're diving into the pros and cons of this ceasefire agreement, what it means for Southeast Asia's stability, and whether this fragile peace can actually hold. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the key provisions, challenges, and what's really at stake here. And joining us to break this all down is our regional security expert. The floor is yours. What exactly happened with this ceasefire?
Well, after 5 days of intense fighting that killed over 40 people and displaced more than 300,000, both sides finally came to the table in Malaysia. The ceasefire was brokered by Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, with backing from both the US and China.
That's a staggering number of displaced people. What were the key points they agreed to?
So just yesterday, they formalized a comprehensive 13-point agreement. The core provisions include a complete ceasefire, protective measures for civilians, and a freeze on troop movements along the entire border.
Sounds promising on paper, but I understand there were immediate issues?
Yeah, within hours of the initial ceasefire taking effect at midnight on July 28th, Thailand accused Cambodia of launching attacks in multiple areas. Cambodia completely denied this, calling the accusations fabricated.
Interesting that you mentioned fabrication. I've heard there's actually a bigger issue with online nationalism and disinformation complicating things.
Absolutely. ASEAN Secretary General Kao Kim Hourn specifically warned about this. Social media users on both sides have been trading blame, reviving old grievances, and in some cases, actively agitating for more conflict.
That's concerning. How are they planning to actually enforce this ceasefire?
They've established a bilateral rapid coordination team with 4 representatives from each side to ensure immediate communication and conflict resolution. Plus, there's now an ASEAN observation team on the ground.
Tell me more about this observation team.
It's quite comprehensive, actually. Representatives from Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, and Vietnam, led by a Malaysian defense attaché. They're monitoring the border for at least 2 weeks.
You know what's fascinating here? The role the US played, particularly President Trump.
Right, Trump essentially used trade negotiations as leverage. He warned both countries he wouldn't proceed with trade deals unless they ended the fighting. Currently, both face a 36% tariff on their exports to the US.
That's quite the economic pressure. But let's talk about the humanitarian impact. What are we looking at?
The numbers are devastating. At least 43 people dead, including civilians. Thailand reported 138,000 people evacuated from border areas, while Cambodia saw around 134,700 displaced.
Over 250,000 displaced. That's staggering.
And it's not just about numbers. These are real people forced to flee their homes, many seeking refuge in pagodas and evacuation centers. There are reports of shortages in shelter and medical supplies.
Let's talk about the domestic political angle. How is this playing out in both countries?
That's actually one of the biggest threats to the ceasefire. In Thailand, we've seen the suspension of Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra, which has created political instability and strengthened military influence.
And in Cambodia?
There's been a surge in nationalism, particularly in rural border communities. Plus, former Prime Minister Hun Sen still wields enormous influence and has been making provocative statements about Thai ambitions.
This seems to go beyond just a border dispute then.
Absolutely. The Council on Foreign Relations suggests this escalation is actually driven by elites in both countries trying to consolidate military and political power.
That's quite concerning for the ceasefire's prospects.
It is. And there's another challenge, the military imbalance. Cambodia's military is only about a third the size of Thailand's and lacks their advanced weaponry.
How does that affect the dynamics of maintaining peace?
It creates an interesting situation where Cambodia has been more eager for negotiations, while Thailand initially resisted talks until international pressure mounted.
Let's talk about the historical context. This isn't the first time these two countries have clashed, right?
No, this dispute actually dates back to colonial times. The border was drawn during French rule of Cambodia, and there's been particular tension over the 11th century Preah Vihear temple.
Tell us more about this temple situation.
The International Court of Justice awarded the temple to Cambodia in 1962 and reaffirmed this in 2013. But Thailand continues to dispute sovereignty over the surrounding territory.
So what makes this current ceasefire different from previous attempts at peace?
This time, there's unprecedented international involvement. Beyond ASEAN's role, we have both the US and China actively engaged in supporting the peace process.
That's interesting. Competitors working together for regional stability.
Exactly. As one analyst put it, the Chinese and US interests align on this, which is very rare. Neither wants more instability in Southeast Asia.
What about the economic impact of all this?
It's been severe. Cambodia banned Thai imports, including fruits, vegetables, and essential services like electricity and internet. Thailand responded with its own restrictions.
And this affects the whole region, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Take Indonesia, for example. They have over 130,000 citizens working in Cambodia in high-risk sectors. Any escalation could endanger their safety and disrupt regional trade.
What's been ASEAN's role in all this?
ASEAN, particularly under Malaysia's chairmanship, moved quickly but quietly behind the scenes. They focused on managing the conflict rather than trying to resolve deeper political causes.
Was that approach effective?
According to ASEAN Secretary General, yes. Within just 5 days, their mediation efforts had taken effect. But some critics argue this shows the limitations of ASEAN's non-intervention principle.
What are the key challenges to maintaining this ceasefire?
3 main ones: ongoing political instability in both countries, the spread of inflammatory rhetoric on social media, and the lack of resolution to the underlying border dispute.
And what about the monitoring mechanisms? Are they robust enough?
The ASEAN observation team is a good start, but there are concerns about their mandate and authority. Success really depends on both sides' political will to maintain peace.
Let's talk about the civilians affected. What's being done to help them?
The ceasefire agreement includes specific provisions for civilian protection and the return of displaced persons. Thailand has opened over 300 evacuation centers.
Are people actually starting to return home?
There are some early signs of return, but many are understandably cautious given the fragility of the ceasefire and continued reports of violations.
What about the captured soldiers on both sides?
The agreement includes provisions for immediate release and repatriation of captured soldiers, plus the transfer of injured persons to medical facilities. But implementation has been slow.
Looking ahead, what are the prospects for lasting peace?
It really depends on addressing those underlying issues: the border dispute, domestic political tensions, and the trust deficit between both militaries.
And the role of international pressure?
That's crucial. Continued engagement from the US, China, and ASEAN will be vital to maintain momentum for peace and prevent backsliding into conflict.
What lessons can we draw from this for other regional conflicts?
The key takeaway is that military solutions rarely work. What's needed is sustained diplomatic engagement, strong monitoring mechanisms, and addressing root causes rather than just symptoms.
And the importance of social media management in modern conflicts?
Absolutely critical. The spread of nationalism and disinformation online can undermine peace efforts just as effectively as military actions.
What should people be watching for in the coming weeks?
Keep an eye on 3 things: the implementation of the monitoring mechanism, the return of displaced persons, and most importantly, whether both sides maintain their political commitment to peace.
So when you step back from all this, what's the bottom line?
The ceasefire is a crucial first step, but it's just that, a first step. Without addressing the deeper political and territorial issues, we're likely to see this cycle repeat.
And there's a lot at stake here beyond just these 2 countries.
Exactly. This is really a test case for ASEAN's credibility and the broader stability of Southeast Asia. The success or failure of this ceasefire could shape regional conflict resolution for years to come.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of